We've just come out for a walk. I want to recce out a fishing mark that we're going to try out later on in the year, and I thought it was a perfect time to do it. I don't know if you'll be able to see, but in the corner of the shot over there is a flock of gannets diving into the water. See that huge tree what's fallen down? We've just had some storms recently. You'll see here on the side these groups of berries. This is ivy. You'll often see wood pigeons stocking up on these. I'm surprised to see these. There's another one down there. They're called red campions, and you usually get them out with bluebells, so these are out over early. There's not an awful lot growing at the minute. I mean, you can see even the brambles have all gone back. I always thought this was a good time of year to come out because you see all the old birds' nests from the year before, whereas if you walk past this when it's all full of leaves and you've never seen out, you walk through it all now and you think, oh God, as if I missed that one. I'm going on the beach. You can see here I've come down and it's almost low tide. The reason why I wanted to come down at low tide is so that you could see the rock formations. Like this area behind me where it's got a little scar running out. Either side of it will be gullies. In the same way these little pieces here, you'll be able to see the small rock formations where you wouldn't be able to see it, say on a night or at high tide. So it's good to come down at low tide if you're going to recce out a mark, because then you can see what's on the seabed. Now I can already see down here in these rock crevices as well, there's quite a bit of bladderwrack, so it would be a half decent place to come and forage possibly. I might come down here later on in the year when it's nicer. Now you won't be able to see on the camera, but I can see a couple of cormorants and there was a seal bobbing round. But the area where we're most interested in, and you see where there's bits of white water there, that's where waves are breaking over a shallow reef. That's the area where we'll be fishing. You can see there's a mark that's uncovered, and then further out there's some breaking waves, and then further out again, I don't know if you can see, there's like a black marker buoy. There's reefs that run all the way out to there. That would even be a decent place to come with a boat, drifting with some live prawn or some live joeys, because areas like that, they will hold pollock and bass. Now that we've made it down onto the beach, you can see what type of beach we're dealing with. You've got sand and broken shell onto hard reef underneath. So the only places where you're going to find things like crabs or little fish is going to be in the little gullies with the broken stones. There's some spiraled rack, and on some of the odd rocks you can see there's some gutweed. This is gutweed, this is edible, this is what you'll eat in your Chinese restaurants. And what we're going to be doing is we're just going to have a look in some of the rock pools and see what we can find. I don't know if you can see that, there's like a swirling effect on the water. That shows that there's a mixture of fresh and salt water in these pools. Here's your limpets and your winkles. These tracks here are made by your winkles. Your winkles will move along the top. These are painted top shells. Your winkles will move along the tops of the rocks here, look, and graze. That actually looks like a limpet. The limpet ones, I don't know if you can see by being a bit too close, they're generally like jagged lines. These are dog whelks, and they will eat these limpets. I can show you real quick what it's like. That little creature under there has got like a drill tooth, and they'll climb up on top of one of these and drill a hole in it and then eat it. So often you'll find these dead limpet shells and they'll have a little tiny perfect hole in them. There's more of those tracks. Now there's a couple of different types of this. It's sea flax or elongated coral weed. There's a little bit of what possibly could be dulse, but it's not. I think it's a fern weed. You can see that all these rocks, because they take an awful lot of the beating of the surf as the tide comes in and goes out, there's not an awful lot on them. This is a little bit of pom-pom weed. You'll only really get your barnacles up on top of the rocks, and down inside the crevices is where you'll find your creatures. There's another dog whelk. There's some little fronds of dulse growing just on the side of this rock. We'll see if we've got anything underneath it. Oh, a few little tiny fish. I'm quite fast though, don't know if you can see them. There's a little furrowed crab. It's a xantho crab. There's 2 or 3 different types. Oh look, and there's a cushion star as well. Let this go gently. It's important to always return the rocks that you're turning over, but also at the same time you need to be careful that you're not crushing stuff as you put the rocks back down. Nope. There is a little prawn, and also there is, well there was, it's called a Montague's blenny. A few more little crabs, look. Like I say, you won't find an awful lot in these rock pools because these are where most of the smashing of the surf comes on. If you'll find it anywhere, it'll be in the deeper ones where there's more shelter. There's some little fronds of dulse growing just on the side of this rock. We'll see if we've got anything underneath it. Oh, a few little tiny fish. I'm quite fast though, don't know if you can see them. A couple of little crabs trying to make an escape. There's one there, look. Just little tiny crabs, but there's a lot of them. Look, there's one there. Here's one here. Water is actually quite cold. So there are a couple of 3 of them. Look. Just let them go. Just put that back down gently. I don't know how well you're going to be able to see these, but in this rock pool there are a lot of little anemones. A couple of different types and colours. I don't know if you can see them. See them? There's another one there, look. Now that little green one there, there's a couple more of them here, and that one, I believe, is a snake lock anemone. See it? And what they do is, on those arms, they've got like a sticky bud on the end of each arm. And whenever anything comes in contact with this, it grabs hold of it and draws it into that bit in the middle, look. There, look. But yeah, in that one little rock pool there's 5. A couple more. There's a really vivid green one. I don't know if you can see that one there, just at the end of my finger. You have to be careful with them snake locks because they can sting you and they leave a mark on your skin for a while. This rock pool here is absolutely teeming with them. You can see them running all the way along there. Look, they're all... This is where most of them are here. See them all around there? Be a bad day for a little crab or a little shrimp comes into this rock pool because it's absolutely teeming with them. Some of those are snake locks anemones. There's a couple of different types, and if I can see I can find some. There's quite a lot of painted top shells. If I find one, there's one that's bright red with dots on. You see these here, these are almost like an iridescent green. The ones with they're bright red with dots on are a strawberry anemone. I'll see if I can find you one of those in a minute. What I'm going to do is I'm going to feed a little tiny crab to these anemones. There, look, see. See how they get hold of it? If it was moving a little bit more, then maybe. There, look, you see? Once they've got hold of it, they'll drag it in there to its mouth in the centre. A few little tiny fish scurrying around, see them? And a few little tiny prawns. There's one. There you see. Looking around on the beach, there isn't much more than this bladder wrack, which has like air pockets in it to help it float up in the water so it gets the sunlight for longer. That's a good example, look. There is this odd piece here. This is a piece of kelp. It's a kelp frond, and it anchors itself to the bottom. It'll be out there somewhere past those breakers will be where this has come from. And it anchors itself up, stood like that, and this flows around in the tide. Yeah, that's edible. Also, it's very high in iodine. Back in the 1800s they used to farm kelp and then boil it down for the iodine. Here is another collection of anemones. but those ones aren't in the water. When they're up high and dry like this, they draw all their tentacles back in and hide, just like in a blob like that. If you find any that are in the water, that's when they open out, like the ones that we saw earlier. There's a withered old piece of driftwood. I wonder how many years that's been floating around out at sea. See all the little wormholes in it. The little man has just found that as well, which is the skeleton out of the inside of a big cuttlefish. Now walking along this patch of beach here, you can see there is. Well done. What have we got? Oh, what's that, James? A shell of a crab.
Yeah. But
you can see that there's not much else other than a lot of limpets. We have found one hard shell clamshell and a few of these nice little flat winkles, look. But most of it is just limpets. Get it in the bucket, okay. I'm just following it along. You can see that's predominantly what you've got, which shows you that there's not an awful lot other than limpets living on these hard rocks, because it will probably be clean sand straight onto bare rock. So there's not an awful lot for them. If it was more sheltered, you would get more things like mussels and other clams. The ones like this, they'll just live in the little gullies just in a bit of sand, but there's not really enough there to warrant coming foraging them. There is an awful lot of kelp. There's an old pine cone. Yep. Periwinkle. I always really like these, I think they're really funny. That is the anchor from the bottom of a piece of kelp, like a piece of sugar kelp. And each one of these grows like a tendril that can stick to stuff. So it acts as like an anchor in somewhere, like in a crevice in a rock. Some of them anchor flat to the bottom, like that, or like this. Other ones grow ones of these. Some more clam shells. There's a hard shelled clam, a dogwelk, and another periwinkle. See if I can find you one of those limpets with a perfect hole in it, which has had a dogwelk on it there, look. Exactly what I was talking about. That there, that little tiny hole in the top, that's been eaten by a dogwelk. I think there's another one. And there's another one, look. See the perfect hole in it? All of those have been eaten by one of them little yellow shells. It's one of those things that once you notice it, you'll start noticing it more. Has someone been decorating that tree with shells?
yeah.
Do you want to put this one on?
Yep.
You finished with that? Do you want me to hold that? Can you put one on there here? You want to try it on a bigger one? You'll try it on this one here. Good lad. Limpet shells. Hannah's found a nice little coiny scallop. Still got anything on her?
No, I think it's empty.
Loads of limpets around this area. Well, we've had a nice little walk there. I've been looking on Google Maps and found an area that I wanted to try fishing. So I thought I would come and look at it at low tide, give it a recce out while the weather's not great, so that when I do get a good weather window I can come and fish it straight away. We had a nice little walk through the woods, didn't we?
Yeah.
And then we had a walk on the beach, and what did we find?
A cell of crabs.
Shells of crabs. A few bits of shells. Had a nice look in the rock pools, found some nice anemones. And we'd, I think it's time we're going home now. So what do we say?
Goodbye from the AIDS and
Goodbye from the fish locker.